Do you think that belief is a choice? If so, tell me why, and I'll prove you wrong. Do you wish that you were 10 years younger? Well, you can't make yourself 10 years younger, but according to your logic, you can make yourself believe that you're 10 years younger. All you gotta do is just haul off and choose to believe it, and you're convinced that you're 10 years younger. Doesn't work, does it? You see, direct doxastic voluntarism doesn't work. You know what that is? Direct doxastic voluntarism is the idea that you can believe anything you want just because you choose to believe it. In other words, you can just choose to believe in the flying spaghetti monster and get convinced just because you chose to believe it. Now, thousands of years ago, when most people believed that the earth was flat, they didn't choose to believe that the earth was flat. They believed it because they had no control over it. See, you believe Christianity not because you chose to, but because you have no control over it. Atheists aren't atheists because they choose to be atheists. They're atheists because they have no control over it. Same thing. If I tell you that I can do 1,000 push-ups, and I can prove it too, then you'd probably say, well, prove it then. And then what if I say, I refuse to prove it. I expect you to just take my word for it on blind faith, with no evidence whatsoever. And if you don't start believing that I can do 1,000 push-ups, I'm going to burn you at the stake. Well, would that be fair? What would that make me? A big fat coward, right? Well, if God wants you to believe that He exists with no evidence whatsoever, and He expects you to just take it all on blind faith, God could thoroughly prove His existence if He wanted to, right? But He refuses to, and He expects you to just take it on blind faith, or else He's going to punish you. What's the difference between that and the belief about me doing 1,000 push-ups? I mean, and if Christians say, well, if God proved His existence, then there'd be no free will. Well, couldn't I use that excuse too and say, well, I'm not going to prove to you that I can do 1,000 push-ups because then there'd be no free will. Don't it work both ways? If someone pulls a gun on you and says, I want you to believe that 2 and 2 is 7, what are you going to do? You're going to say, okay, no problem, I believe it. 2 and 2 is 7. But do you really believe it? No, you don't. You're just saying that to avoid being shot. You're not fooling him. Same thing. If you threaten an atheist with hellfire and say, if you don't start believing in God, you're going to burn in hell, and then the atheist says, okay, I believe it, sure. Yeah, there's a God, you know. But does he really believe it? No, he doesn't. He's pretending to, and he's just trying to look for a fire escape from hellfire. That's all. And he could try, if he tries to choose to believe that there's a God, and he could try as hard as he wants, but you see, you can't force yourself to believe something that you don't believe. At least not without evidence. So this person who tries to choose to believe in God just to save himself from burning, well, if God is all-knowing, then he can see through the deception. You know, he would know that the person is just trying to use Pascal's wager for fire insurance. If God is all-knowing, then he should know that belief or disbelief is not a choice that you make. It's an involuntary reaction. It's something that you have no control over. So the important question is, why would God punish somebody for something that they have no control over? An atheist isn't an atheist by choice. Atheists are atheists because they have no control over it. Just like Christians are Christians, not by choice but because they have no control over it. They believe Christianity is true because they're convinced of it, not just because they chose to believe it.